Kamala Harris. Let's have a good debate.
Nice to see you. Have fun.
Thank you.
I love this moment. The vice president looks great, walks right over to him, introduces herself, and says, let's have a good debate. President Trump says, nice to see you, have fun, and they thank each other.
Welcome to you both. It's wonderful to have you. It's an honor to have you both here tonight.
Good evening. We are looking forward to a spirited and thoughtful debate.
Vice President Harris, you and President Trump were elected 4 years ago.
David Muir just admitted that Trump won the 2020 election.
President Trump were elected 4 years ago, and your opponent on the stage here tonight often asks his supporters, are you better off than you were 4 years ago? When it comes to the economy, do you believe Americans are better off than they were 4 years ago?
So I was raised as a middle-class kid.
Kamala Harris never answers this question, and the moderators let her get away with not answering this question.
And I am actually the only person on this stage who has a plan that is about lifting up the middle class and working people of America. I believe in the ambition.
I just noticed that the camera is facing down on President Trump and up on Kamala Harris. He's got a villain angle, she's got a hero angle.
My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax, which would be a 20% tax on everyday goods that you rely on to get through the month. Economists have said that Trump sales tax would actually result for middle-class families in about $4,000 more a year because of his policies and his ideas about what should be the backs of middle-class people paying for tax cuts for billionaires.
It is not true that any economist said that. It was the Center for American Progress under John Podesta, Bill Clinton's former chief of staff.
My opponent has a plan that I call the Trump's sales tax.
Kamala Harris says a Trump sales tax. She has named the tariffs a Trump sales tax, and this is deliberate. And the people who have coached her don't ever want her saying the word tariff, because Harris-Biden kept Trump's tariffs.
President Trump, I'll give you 2 minutes.
First of all, I have no sales tax. That's an incorrect statement. She knows that. We're doing tariffs on other countries. Other countries are going to finally, after 75 years, pay us back for all that we've done for the world. And the tariff will be substantial in some cases. I took in billions and billions of dollars, as you know, from China. In fact, they never took the tariff off because there was so much money they can't. It would totally destroy everything that they've set out to do. They're taking in billions of dollars from China and other places. They've left the tariffs on. When I had it, I had tariffs, and yet I had no inflation. Look, we've had a terrible economy because inflation which is really known as a country buster. It breaks up countries. We have inflation like very few people have ever seen before, probably the worst in our nation's history. We were at 21%, but that's being generous because many things are 50, 60, 70, and 80% higher than they were just a few years ago.
This is at least the second time she has heckled him. Her mic is off, so we don't hear it, but she looks over at him, she laughs, she says stuff, and he hears her, and it's distracting, and the moderators never stopped it.
And you see what's happening. You see what's happening with towns throughout the United States. You look at Springfield, Ohio. You look at Aurora in Colorado. They are taking over the towns. They're taking over buildings. They're going in violently. These are the people that she and Biden led into our country, and they're destroying our country. They're dangerous. They're at the highest level of criminality. And we have to get them out. We have to get them out fast.
The report says a consultant for the property management company was severely beaten and stomped by gang members and was hospitalized. The alleged incident recorded by building cameras with screenshots attached to the letter, who said that gang members allegedly stabbed a Whispering Pines resident for refusing to pay rent to the gang.
I created one of the greatest economies in the history of our country. I'll do it again and even better.
We are going to get to immigration and border security during this debate, but I would like to let Vice President Harris respond on the economy here.
Well, I would love to. Let's talk about what Donald Trump left us. Donald Trump left us the worst unemployment since the Great Depression.
6 out of the 8 Obama-Biden years had higher unemployment than Donald Trump's economy after getting hit by COVID.
Donald Trump left us the worst public health epidemic in a century.
Well, that's true, but the Wuhan virus came from the lab in China, and Kamala Harris made sure no one could talk about that. So she kind of helped China out, and she helped them cover their tracks.
Donald Trump left us the worst attack on our democracy since the Civil War.
2020 brought us a bunch of riots, many of which were organized by the left. Black Lives Matter, and a man by the name of Michael Podhorzer. Podhorzer ran a thing called the Fight Back Table or the Fight Table, and it was a group of leftists. Amber McReynolds was with them, and they ran that stupid shadow campaign that Time magazine documented, an illegal election inside our election. And in there, they detailed that they told all the rioters to stand down because Biden won. If in the fall of 2020 Biden would have lost, many of those rioters that hit us in the summer, they would have hit your city again in the fall. They told them to stand down. They printed that. I'm going to point out that Podhorzer is a senior fellow at CAP, the Center for American Progress, the place that gave Kamala Harris her economic talking points. With over 2,000 police injured and dozens of deaths, the riots of 2020 blew away anything January 6 ever brought us. Remember when the crazy activists took over part of a city in Portland? The CHOP?
It's very unfortunate that we have yet another murder in this area identified as the CHOP. 2 African-American men dead at a place where they claim to be working for Black Lives Matter, but they're gone. They're dead now. And we've had multiple other incidents: assaults, rape, robbery, and shootings.
And what we have done is clean up Donald Trump's mess.
And this is a movement, I'm telling you. They're not going to stop. And everyone beware, because they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop before Election Day in November, and they're not going to stop after Election Day. And everyone should take note of that on both levels, that they're not going to let up, and they should not. And we should not.
What you're going to hear tonight is a detailed and dangerous plan called Project 2025 that the former president intends on implementing if he were elected again.
President Trump will give you a minute here to respond.
Number one, I have nothing to do, as you know, and as she knows better than anyone, I have nothing to do with Project 2025.
Project 2025 is a Mark Elias hoax. I did a video on it. Please check it out. President Trump has nothing to do with Project 2025. There's actually a lot of bickering here about their economic plans. Not a lot there. I sped through it.
She copied Biden's plan, and it's like 4 sentences, like run, spot, run.
I did stop for that. President Trump has some pretty hilarious insults.
4 sentences that are just, oh, we'll try and lower taxes.
Mr. President, I do want to drill down on something you both brought up. The Vice President brought up your tariffs. You responded, and let's drill down on this, because your plan is what she calls is essentially a national sales tax. Your proposal calls for tariffs, as you pointed out here, on foreign imports across the board. You recently said that you might double your plan, imposing tariffs up to 20% on goods coming into this country. As you know, many economists say that with tariffs at that level, costs are then passed on to the consumer. Do you believe Americans can afford higher prices because of tariffs?
They're not going to have higher prices. What's going to have, and who's going to have higher prices, is China and all of the countries that have been ripping us off for years. And, you know, if she doesn't like them, they should have gone out and they should have immediately cut the tariffs. But those tariffs are there 3.5 years now under their administration. I had no inflation, virtually no inflation. They had the highest inflation perhaps in the history of our country, because I've never seen a worse period of time. People can't go out and buy cereal or bacon or eggs or anything else. The people of our country are absolutely dying with what they've done. They've destroyed the economy.
Vice President Harris, I do want to ask for your response, and you heard what the president said there, because the Biden administration did keep a number of the Trump tariffs in place. So how do you respond?
Well, let's be clear that the Trump administration resulted in a trade deficit, one of the highest we've ever seen in the history of America.
ABC does not fact-check this. The Bureau of Economic Analysis under the Biden-Harris administration, her own government, says she's wrong. The question was, why did she keep the Trump tariffs? She never answers it.
But what Donald Trump did, let's talk about this, with COVID, is he actually thanked President Xi for what he did during COVID. Look at his tweet. Thank you, President Xi, exclamation point. When we know that she was responsible for lacking and not giving us transparency about the origins of COVID.
You were in the same room with China's number 2
Yes,
today.
I have actually met with President Xi as well.
Did you talk to him today?
Well, we exchanged pleasantries, yes. Yes.
But it's still a little tense.
Listen, I don't think it's as, I'll pull back and say I don't think it's as
simple, if you will, as whether there's tension. Yes, there's tension when you are in a competition of any sort. There will be tension. That is part of the nature of it all. But that does not mean that we are seeking conflict.
Right.
And I think it's important to not conflate the two.
So you want Xi Jinping to come in November?
I think he is absolutely an important player in this region of the world, and if he comes, then that will be, I'm sure, something that could be productive. And I know that President Biden looks forward to meeting with President Xi at some point.
Everything that she believed 3 years ago and 4 years ago is out the window. She's going to my philosophy now. In fact, I was going to send her a MAGA hat. She's gone to my philosophy.
Vice President Harris says that women shouldn't trust you on the issue of abortion because you've changed your position so many times. Therefore, why should they trust you?
Well, the reason I'm doing that vote is because the plan is, as you know, the vote is, they have abortion in the 9th month. They even have, and you can look at the governor of West Virginia, the previous governor of West Virginia, not the current governor, who's doing an excellent job, but the governor before, he said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
President Trump is technically correct. The governor did say this. I will play it in a second. I do believe the governor was talking about babies who are deformed at birth, but their language, the language of people who write the bills, and other politicians' language about this is always very nebulous. Many of the bills are written with open-ended language. It leaves too much room for abuse. I do not believe the Democrats want to solve this issue ever. I think they like to fundraise off it. So they make weak laws that get knocked down, then they get to refight this issue every election, raising billions of dollars off it.
He said the baby will be born and we will decide what to do with the baby. In other words, we'll execute the baby.
And she was pressed by a Republican delegate about whether her bill would permit an abortion, even as a woman is essentially dilating, ready to give birth. And she answered that it would permit an abortion at that stage of labor. Do you support her measure and explain her answer?
Yeah, and I wasn't there, Julie, and I certainly can't speak for Delegate Tran, but I would tell you first thing I would say, this is why decisions such as this should be made by providers, physicians, and the mothers and fathers that are involved. There are, when we talk about third trimester abortions, these are done with the consent of obviously the mother, with the consent of the physicians, more than one physician, by the way. And it's done in cases where there may be severe deformities, there may be a fetus that's non-viable. So in this particular example, if a mother is in labor, I can tell you exactly what would happen. The infant would be delivered. The infant would be kept comfortable. The infant would be resuscitated if that's what the mother and the family desired. And then a discussion would ensue between the physicians and the mother. So I think this was really blown out of proportion. But again, we want the government not to be involved in these types of decisions. We want the decision to be made by the mothers and their providers.
Where it's obvious that a woman is about to give birth, she has physical signs that she is about to give a birth. Would that still be a point at which she could request an abortion if she was so certified? She's dilating.
Mr. Chairman, that would be a decision that the doctor, the physician, and the woman would make.
I understand that. I'm asking
point.
if your bill allows that.
My bill would allow that, yes.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. That's a very disturbing answer. While I'm sure there are people who want to solve this issue, they are surrounded by people who just want to keep fundraising off it and keep the war going.
But her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me, hence the vote.
In 2023, Walz supported an omnibus health bill that radically changed his state's abortion law. This health bill, in a callback to the ancient practice of abandoning newborns, intentionally and explicitly legalized the denial of life-saving medical care to infants born alive after botched abortions. State law, says the professor, quote, used to explicitly protect these babies, but Walz and his supporters changed it, insisting that references to abortion be removed and that medical care be changed to mere care. In addition, he writes, quote, While the original law required medical personnel to preserve the life and health of the born alive infant, the Walz supported change struck that whole line. It now requires medical personnel merely, quote, to care for the infant who is born alive, end quote. The goal and substance of that care absolutely not defined. This could mean also just declining to extend care, either directly or indirectly, acting or not acting, so as to bring about the goal of the death of the infant. That's what infanticide is.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born. Madam Vice President, I want to get your response to President Trump.
Well, as I said, you're going to hear a bunch of lies, and that's not actually a surprising fact.
There's a lot of semantic games being played with the word infanticide and execution and how the babies die. But it's very clear that they can be left out to die. The ABC moderator engages in this semantic game and engages on the side of Kamala Harris and then hands it off to her like a tag team match. The two candidates continue squabbling about abortion. I sped up to the IVF part.
Another lie. It's another lie. I have been a leader on IVF, which is fertilization. The IVF, I have been a leader. In fact, when they got a very negative decision on IVF from the Alabama courts, I saw the people of Alabama and the legislature 2 days later voted it in. I've been a leader on it. They know that, and everybody else knows it. I have been a leader on fertilization, IVF.
I pause this here to say something. Kamala Harris is going to interrupt President Trump directly. She's going to look at him and say very loudly, "You have not." You're going to hear it, and it interrupts his train of thought, and the ABC moderators never stopped her. She's done this the whole debate.
And the other thing,
They have not.
If the roles were reversed and President Trump was staring her down and talking over her and interrupting her, we would have heard no end of how he bullied her and he was mean and all this garbage. But they let her get away with this, and it's pretty pathetic.
you should ask, will she allow abortion in the 8th month, 9th month, 7th month?
Come on.
Okay, would you do that? Why don't you ask her that question?
Why don't you answer
That's
the
problem.
question? Would you
because
veto?
under Roe v.
Answer
Wade,
the question,
you
would you
could
veto?
you could do abortions in the 7th month, the 8th month, the 9th
That's
month,
not true.
and probably after birth. Just look at the former governor of Virginia. The governor of Virginia said we put the baby aside and then we determine what we want to do with the baby.
President Trump, thank you.
We're going to turn now to immigration and border security.